Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer action. Harkon looking around, wondering what the heck's going on. Today I'm playing Zaxbane, so he's an up-and-coming player. I say up-and-coming, he's been around for a while, but recently has been in a few tournaments and had some pretty good success and caught the attention of myself and quite a few others. Managed to run into him on ladder, and before you guys complain about me counterpicking him, he asked me to go coast against his Lizardmen. For the record, he wanted to practice this matchup, so I was like, okay, I can help you with that. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at the builds. We've got Luther Harkon up in the air. He's mostly fully kitted out up on the Terrorgeist here. Of course, heavy magic resistance. He's got his ability Recharge, Hornswaggle, which gives minus 30 armor, melee defense, and a bit of speed as well. We've got 3 non-armor piercing deck droppers. Because of the Hornswaggle and the Fleet Captain's extra ability here, you can stack both of those on top of each other, both Taunt and Hornswaggle, to get minus 60 armor in total. And then those non-AP gun bats will do just fine. We've also got a Gunnery Wipe for some additional ammunition, tons of zombies, and the Lamprey's Revenge. For Zaxbane's Lizardmen here, we've got plenty of Saurus Warriors, Spears, and regular mixed in the front line, including Legion of Chocolates here in the back. They're protecting Lord Croak. We've got Saurus Scarvet, Saurus Old Blood, Skink Cohort Javelins, and some Umbral Tide. Yes, the Regiment of Renown Salamanders. Right off the bat, we're just going to be moving forward doing some skirmishing. I'm not too worried about taking the hits with Harkon for these javelins, since he has regeneration on the Terrorgeist and also can regenerate in melee through the Hunger. I'm perfectly happy to soak the missiles with Harkon rather than having them hit my deck droppers. Granted, these non-armor piercing deck droppers are only 450 points, so if I do lose a few, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but I am going to be relying on their stopping power quite a bit, just because I don't have that much stopping power in my army to begin with. You can see over here the 2 characters, Saurus Old Blood and Saurus Scarvet, trying to get through to get on the Gunnery White and the Fleet Captain here, but I do have Lore of Deeps, and we're going to open up here. Oh, nope, looks like this is actually Lord Croak. Yep. Lord Croak unleashing the deliverance of some pizzas there. Meanwhile, Luther Harkon has been taking some pretty good damage from those Umbral Tide, but he is starting to return fire as well, and he does enough missile damage. He actually does a ton of missile damage. He can easily one-shot the unit models there. I also use the Breath Attack. Probably not the best use of that Breath Attack, but I just wanted to take down as many of those models as quickly as I could, so that they wouldn't continue to fight. Meanwhile, infantry engagement getting underway here. You can see Lamprey's Revenge and some zombies moving in to engage on some Saurus. I'm pulling the other zombies into the back line into defensive position just because I'm going to try and get as much value as I can from the ranged fire at first. You can see the Power Siphon on the Lord Croak here, just giving him extra ability recharge, so that, he can't maybe cast his abilities quite as often. I probably should have waited till Shield of the Old Ones wore off to hit that, but anyway. Scarvet has been getting continuously taunted and hornswaggled. We've been kind of alternating them, sometimes putting both. Here we've got a Kraken's Pull going off against some of these Saurus in the back line, as well as hitting quite a few of those Salamanders. The Salamanders were really the main target of that Kraken's Pull, and it did do quite a bit of damage there, so pretty good stuff so far. Lord Croak is up next on the snipe list. The Big Toad here taking quite a few shots. Again, Hornswaggle, he only has 15 armor to begin with, so with the Hornswaggle on him, he goes very, very low, down to only 30 armor, or sorry, 45 to begin with. Now he goes down to only 15. He is going to get the Shield of Chocolates there to try and help resist some of that missile fire. He does have pretty good base missile resistance to begin with, so with both of those active, currently at 84% missile resistance, going to be very, very effective. But here we've got another Deliverance of Itza. I get what he was going for here, using the big Overcast version. I've got Fog of the Damned sort of debuffing a lot of the units in this pocket, but at the same time, the Deliverance is relatively expensive on Winds of Magic, and yeah, it's going after zombies, maybe not the best use of it necessarily. We'll talk more about that in just a minute, but Croak just about to go down here. The Fleet Captain herself also getting involved a little bit. We were about to have one more Deliverance, but Croak goes down, the Spirit rises into the air. It looks like the Deliverance is actually going to go off anyway, but there weren't that many vampire units there to damage, so since Croak is down, that's going to put a pretty significant dent in the balance of power. The my infantry obviously is going to lose out pretty hard here, and even the Lamprey's Revenge, who are going to be kind of the anchor point of this entire line, have taken a lot of damage at this point. We didn't do a great job of keeping them engaged on top of chaff here. I've still got quite a few reserve zombies left, so that's not the best. Granted, we've just about sniped out these two Source heroes, and then we can start just terror routing with Harkon, but a little bit of a tricky situation here. Old Gunny's going to get caught up by the two Source heroes and pounded out very, very quickly. They both have very good armor-piercing stats and everything, and Gunny doesn't have the best melee defense in the world. He's got quite a bit of HP, but I'm going to try and pull him away. He's just going to get absolutely wrecked here, though. Not the best. Meanwhile, the Fleet Admiral is continuing to regenerate because of that Hunger ability. The Umbral Tide did come back, got a pretty decent volley there on Harkon. He is weak to fire, of course, up on that Terrorgeist, but you can see here Gunny taking some damage. I believe we got one ammo cast out on Luther, but yeah, Gunny goes down. Thankfully, he was able to at least hold these two Lizard heroes in place for some time. The Saurus Scarvet is going to get routed off here. Sorry, the Old Blood's going to get routed off. The Scarvet takes a breath attack, and then Harkon's going to go ahead and charge down here and just pretty much one-shot him with that charge. I say one shot. He was obviously very low to begin with, but yeah, with that, the Umbral Tide are going to flee. We've got one more Kraken's pull over here that's managed to catch some of these Saurus as they try and advance across the field. It does a decent amount of damage. It wasn't the best blob to cast that on, but still did some okay damage, certainly. And yeah, at this point you can see, because of the balance of power situation, the Lizardmen are going to start to run into leadership issues, absolutely. Just all across the field here, these Saurus, even the Legion of Chocolate's getting pretty low. And yeah, at this point I do have a few zombies left on the field, so we're going to use my bats to try and chase routing units as much as possible. Obviously, the terror from Harkon going to be very key also, just dropping rear charges and pistol shots everywhere I can. The the captain here will be able to kind of anchor the ground forces to a degree. Even if all the zombies crumble away, she is pretty tanky. She's got, you know, the hunger, and she's got decent armor and melee defense. 120 armor is actually really, really good. So yeah, she's going to be pretty tough for the lizards to take down. You can see here, this unit of zombies still fighting, still crumbling. Same thing with one more zombie polearm here, and these two gun bats have used up all of their ammunition. The other gun bat chasing this routing unit of Umbral Tide, probably a little bit of an overchase here. You can see I finally do, I looked like I was maybe going to pull them back, but I'm not sure exactly what happened with the order there. But yeah, those guys are pretty much done for. They're more or less shattered. These other gun bats are going to start to go after Skinks anywhere they can. Because of Skink's low leadership and low stats, we can get in here and, oh man, it's giving me a headache, all that shaking. They can get in here and actually get some pretty good work done, be able to rout these guys off, and like this tattered group of Saurus as well, they'll do okay, but the gun bats should be able to maybe see off some of those units there. Meanwhile, Harkon's back up in the air firing his pistol. Only really picks off like one model at a time here, but you know, picking off one or two models at a time, definitely important in this late game situation. So yeah, you can see this Saurus trying to rally over here. A lot of these units trying to get back into the center pocket. But we'll see. This Crabton here, the Fleet Crabton, gonna get in here and absolutely smash up some of these Saurus. Really nice matched animation there. The Terror, of course, from Harkon. As soon as he drops down with a rear charge, that's going to terror route quite a few of these units away. You can see we also dropped the Taunt and Hornswaggle both on the Legion of Chocolates, I believe, or that unit of Saurus that was relatively healthy. So they just took a ton of damage. Their melee defense down to 0. And yeah, we're going to be able to, again, pull these bats over. This other bat is just about back as well. Try saying that 5 times fast. And yeah, we're going to start to shoot in from the back here. Again, these bats are going to be used to try and proc a rear charge penalty, go after routing units if I can as much as possible. So yeah, this is pretty much the late game here, and believe it or not, the Lizardmen, honestly, if they can hold tight, they might be able to win here. The terror from Harkon is a pretty big issue, but I mean, there's a lot of anti-large still here. The Saurus Spears will be able to do a pretty good amount of damage. Now, one quick note here about tournament rule set. That I usually try and play all my games by tournament rule set, but I was under the impression that chasing routing units was okay. In this situation, single entities don't necessarily count as attacking, right? And you always have to be quote-unquote attacking. Chasing routing units doesn't count as attacking, so in this situation I would have needed to pull one of these gunbat units over here to attack these units to technically be counting as attacking. It wasn't a big deal at the end of the day, but Zack Spain did point that out at the end of the match, and he does have a point. Technically, I would need to pull one of these gunbats over here, and even just go after like the skink cohort or something would technically count, but yeah, at this point, it's going to be tricky. I mean, you can see the Fleet Admiral taking some damage here, and again, we'll use the taunt on the unit that she's fighting specifically to debuff their melee defense so that she can get some better hits in. Harkon's using up the last of his pistol shots to pick off a few more of those Saurus, but then once the blob starts to form, he's going to go ahead and drop a charge down, get into the side here. Of course, since the spears aren't facing forward, like I can pretty much choose to charge them in the side or rear, it's going to be very important. Fog of the Damned also dropped because I was hoping for the bigger and stronger unit nearby leadership effect. Yeah, that -4. The bigger the differential between the local unit stats, the bigger that leadership effect can be. So even stacking like a giant, I mean, obviously Fog of the Damned has a leadership component in and of itself, which was quite helpful there. But even stacking that with the melee attack buff, that does mean that the units will think that they are worse than Harkon and the Admiral, and that adds to the leadership effect. Anyway, super close game at the end of the day. Very well played to Zack Spain. In terms of the army breakdown here, I had mentioned to him that the video that just got uploaded today, I'm recording this on the day that the Giselle Proof Lizards video went up. We were talking pretty extensively after the fact, just kind of theory crafting, because I know for myself and for many other people, this is probably the toughest matchup for the Lizardmen. For a number of different reasons, but we were kind of theory crafting some different things, so we'll talk about more about that in just a second. In terms of the actual battle here, obviously Harkon doing some very heavy lifting, 114 kills, you know, helping to snipe out quite a few units. He is an exceptionally powerful character, especially in this matchup. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit. The Admiral, of course, 82 kills as well. She is very strong. The Kraken's Pull is a nice spell to bring. Honestly, I'm warming up to Kraken's Pull more and more. You guys may see me use it more frequently, but nonetheless, on the Crab, still able to just tank out. Gunny didn't get as much work done as I wanted to against units, but certainly helping snipe out characters, and dropping that extra ammo is always helpful. And of course, the Gunbats also doing some nice work. For Zack Spain's army, obviously the Saurus Warriors cutting through a ton of zombies, as to be expected. Salamanders ended up being a little bit of a rough pick. I definitely understand why he brought them. You know, having that mobile skirmish with heavy anti-large AP and fire damage too is good against some coast units. Definitely understood why he brought it. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of Salamanders. They are a little bit expensive for what you get out of them, and they can be tricky to protect, even against a faction like Coast, which doesn't necessarily have good backline harass tools, but they do have good counter-fire tools. And like with Kraken's Pull there, for example, I was able to get through. But as I was mentioning with the other video that I uploaded today, I did mention to Zack Spain that he should watch that, and he did. And I was sort of theory crafting that using something similar may work relatively well. So if you grab Mazdamundi here, he does have base 40% missile resistance, just like Croak. But he can take the Sunburst Standard of Hexawaddle, gives him an additional 12% constant missile resistance, not only to himself, but to all units in an area of effect, which is quite nice. Likewise, he does have some pretty good spells. Having the free banishment is always nice. You still have Shield of the old ones. If you're worried about Harkon, Roiling Skies actually might be decent to take. I don't know. I almost always cut Roiling Skies. Ruination of Cities is also something, if you're feeling a bit risky, you can take it, but it's not super reliable in terms of its damage output, so I usually will not take it. In terms of actual spells here, Apotheosis is always nice to have. I may consider Arcane Unforging, but because Harkon has such heavy magic resistance, it's not going to end up doing that much damage to him, so I may pass on that. Comet of Cassandora, I actually think this is one matchup where you could take this, sort of as a replacement for Croak's Blob Busting. You don't necessarily, I mean, really the only infantry you have to worry about is Lizardmen versus Coast is Depth Guard, and you can deal with them with other units. Comet of Cassandora certainly is one way of potentially dealing with them, but even a unit like this cohort of Sotek, especially, if they can get into Depth Guard, they can do it. So, I mean, just in terms of having another spell here, Curse of the Midnight Wind might not be bad. Harmonic Convergence is almost always nice to have as well, but I might take just Apotheosis and Comet of Cassandora just to make Mazdamundi as cheap as possible. From there, I'll grab 2 Sora Scar Veterans on cold ones, just because at this size they're relatively hard comparatively compared to like a big monster to hit with missiles. They're relatively cheap, they can get around, they still have anti-large AP to take down stuff like crabs or, you know, like a Necrofex Colossus or something like that. 2 of them gives you quite a bit of anti-large stopping power there. And then from there I might fill out the rest of the army mostly the same. I don't know, if you wanted to go like what Kark did the other day with the double Stegodons and chevron them up, it does get pretty expensive at that point. You know, you don't really have a whole lot of funds left for your actual units, in which case you'd probably need to go relatively wide with like some skinks, and then maybe just slot in only 1 unit of like the spears or something. This does feel a little bit weird for me, and you don't really have a lot of good options for the gun bats. I mean, I guess the Stegodons can fire up at the gun bats with their main gun, but it's not going to be that efficient. I think because you don't necessarily have to counter artillery snipe against the coast as much, maybe you cut these Stegodons and bring some cheaper monsters. I don't know. It's tough against coast to bring any sort of monsters just because they're so good at taking them out, but rather than doing that, maybe we'll just, like with what Zaxbane did there, we'll just tank up on some additional infantry. We've got some Red Crests mixed in there. We've got some Saurus Warriors now. Let's also grab some regular skink skirmishers. We'll grab, maybe 4 or 5. Just because these guys, they're only 400 points, they have pretty decent ranged missile damage, and because you can bring a lot of them, they have 360 shooting, they have a pretty good volume of fire as well, so these guys would be a really, really nice counter to those gun bats. Likewise, they're fast enough, they can stay out in front of zombies pretty much always, apply poison to everything, and that missile damage is also pretty nice as well. If you do even want to layer them with Curse the Midnight Wind, then the lack of AP on these blowpipes doesn't become that much of an issue. I mean, the damage output is relatively low, but with Curse of the Midnight Wind debuffing opponent's armor, especially on something like, you know, crabs, or even the Harkon himself for that matter, that armor debuff certainly can help. So something like this I think might work out a little bit better. I don't know. Zaxbane, if you're watching this, let me know in the comments down below if you've had any success trying similar builds to this. You know, obviously Legion of Chakwa being very key here. Adding that extra missile resistance to Mazdamundi, you're going to make him almost immune to missiles. Especially if you go like cycle one after the other, like Shield of Chakwa, and then cycle Shield of the Old Ones, and then, you know, just continuously try and keep those two, rather than using them at the same time, sort of keep them refreshed as much as possible. You could also consider maybe taking a Rev Crystal here, although it's a little bit risky, but just to have that extra healing both with the Apotheosis and the Rev Crystal does mean that you can have your dinos tank out quite a bit of damage, as we saw from the Giselle video. So I don't know, let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification so every time I upload a new video you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.